Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome to the video. I've got you out in my garage here today, and that's because we're going to be comparing the Bashan Brozz 250 to the Kawasaki KLX 230. I've been riding each of these bikes for about 2 years now, so I've got quite a bit of experience and ride time on them, and they're very different. I just kind of want to talk to you guys about my experience on them and what I recommend and what I'll be doing next. First and foremost, I want to compare the engine and performance. We've got a 230, a slightly smaller engine, but with new technology. We've got a fuel-injected engine versus a carbureted engine. They are both air-cooled, so that's your first clue as to these bikes don't have a lot of power. This one's going to come in around 20 horses. The Bashan, I believe, is somewhere closer to 15 horses. You can definitely tell a big difference when you're riding them. The fuel injection versus the carburation makes a huge difference. The Kawasaki is way more responsive, way quicker, way snappier. Overall, I definitely give the point to the KLX. With that being said, I have a sand paddle on right now. I took it to Glamis this last weekend, and I will tell you, it was a complete struggle compared to other dirt bikes, and overall was pretty embarrassing. I had to air the tire way down just to even stand a chance at keeping up with anyone. So if you're looking to do the dunes, you might want to consider a bigger size altogether. Personally, I think it's worth an extra $1,800 and jumping up to the KX 250, which gets you up to 45 horses. That's a huge difference, and I would definitely recommend you considering that jump if you're considering buying one of these bikes right now. Secondly, I want to talk about suspension and handling. The Brozz has no back brake. That's a notorious problem with the default setup, is that the back brake falls out. So I've been riding that thing for at least a year with no back brake. Also, the suspension is terrible. I probably need to redo my forks. It bottoms out constantly. Nowadays, it sounds like a hammer in the front end when you're riding it. Also, my engine is pretty blown. Going back to the performance thing, the last ride I went on, she blew a whole quart of oil. So we're at a rough place right now with the Brozz. But the suspension on it is just terrible. If you're gonna get this bike, that's something you need to upgrade. Get better forks on it, get a better shock, do something. The Kawasaki wins suspension and handling hands down. Even though it's not top of the line, it is night and day compared to that bike. As far as that goes, when I arrived at Glamis, one of my fork seals broke, and so I did all of Glamis on one fork. So Kawasaki kind of let me down on that one, and I didn't have it very tight on the trailer. I'm very surprised that it happened. Next, I'm going to talk about weight and maneuverability. When it comes to weight and maneuverability, these are actually both very inappropriately heavy bikes for the kind of riding I do. They both weigh a ton. They're both, I believe, over 300 pounds, which is pretty heavy for this kind of bike. The Kawasaki KLX is definitely lighter though. This has the build of a track bike that got turned into an enduro with enduro gearing, but it still has like your track bike gas tank on it and some of the lighter weight features. So it is noticeably lighter than the Bashan. It also just feels tighter, less rattly and janky. So it's definitely way easier to maneuver, especially if you're in a situation where you need to like lift the front end up or hop over something. It's just rough on the Brozz, and that's when I start breaking stuff on it. I've broken it a lot, jumping it and hitting big rocks and stuff. The rear hub just can't handle it. So next I want to get into the aesthetics. This isn't very important for most people. I'm actually pretty neutral on both of these bikes. I think they both look good. I'm actually shocked at how the Brozz looks for the price. To someone that knows nothing about dirt bikes, it kind of it kind of fools people and they think it's just a regular dirt bike. So I don't know. I'm going to have to call it a tie on this one since, you know, the aesthetics don't really matter that much anyways. Next, maintenance. Bike maintenance typically would hopefully be change your air filter, you know, take care of your tires, change your oil, lube your chain, and that's kind of what it is with the Kawasaki. But with the Bashan, it's a whole slew of things. It's tighten all your bolts, replace all the bolts that fell out. Things just break a lot more on it. I've probably went through 15 of the bolts in the rear hub, so it's like regular maintenance that parts of the bike break. So do not get the Bashan unless you are a mechanic. You don't even want to have the mindset of taking it to a mechanic because it'll be there all the time. It'll drive you crazy and you'll just wish you spent the money on a better bike. So that's something also to definitely keep in mind if you're looking at these. The next two sections are kind of different. Utility, and what I mean by that is the Brozz actually has a little utility. It has a luggage rack on the back. The Kawasaki doesn't. It has an actual seat for a passenger, whereas the Kawasaki is very unrealistic to actually have a passenger on there. And then the third noteworthy thing is it has a huge gas tank. You're talking like 1.7 gallons versus I believe over 3 gallons. So for going on those really long journeys when you do have it running nice, it is nice to have that big gas tank. So for features, I would actually give it to the Bashan on that one. I'm sorry, for utility, I would give it to the Bashan. For features, the next thing that I want to talk about, there's actually some crazy features on the Bashan that are interesting. It came with a remote start, which is completely useless, and I uninstalled mine. It also comes with an alarm system, which is just wild. It's kind of cool, I guess, but it didn't. I uninstalled it because I just don't like those things. The only feature I could think of the Kawasaki is like that it's fuel injected, but that's not really a fun, quirky feature, so I'm going to give it to the Brozz on that one. That brings us to basically about 6 for the Kawasaki and 4 for the Brozz. Oh, I forgot to talk about one final thing that brings us to that 6.4. And I'm sure this is the one a lot of you want to know, and it's price. So this bad boy right here is $2,000, and it comes to your house in a crate, and you get to put it together. It probably took me about a day to put together. It wasn't that bad. I actually had a blast. A lot of shit broke, super dangerous. This one is $5,000, but by the time you get out the door, you're spending close to $65,000. So this one is 3 times the price. Is it 3 times the value? Hard to say because they both break a lot. This one's 3.5 times the price, but here's the kicker. I've done almost every trail with this bike that I've done with this bike, with an exception of the sand dunes, which do not take this to the sand dunes. It would be cool for maybe just riding around camps and stuff, but it's not going to go in the dunes at all. Not unless you soup it up a lot. I've also had just tons of reliability issues with the Brozz. The wiring's always been wonky. I've kickstarted it so many times. The Kickstarter fell off of it. Like I told you, it doesn't have a back brake right now. So it's not a reliable bike. If you're looking for a bike to ride around your yard and your neighborhood and basically within push it home when it breaks distance, I would recommend this. Otherwise, you need to spend 3 times the amount and get one of these, or do what I'm going to do next and buy a used one, get a 450 and make sure it's fuel injected. I hope you all learned something from this video. I hope that this helped you decide on your next bike or whether or not one of these are right for you. Till next time, peace.